My husband thought his 10-day secret business trip was the perfect cover for his affair. He forgot I control every admin password. When the $15,000 charge for a private yacht in Miami popped up on my phone, I didn't get angry. I just quietly started deactivating his entire life. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about how I took back every cent. My name is Harper Vance. For the last 6 years, I've been known mostly as the wife of Julian Thorne, a title I accepted when I stepped away from my career as one of New York's most sought-after art appraisers. This morning, I was playing that role perfectly, standing in the cold, grand foyer of our Connecticut villa, watching Julian fuss with his briefcase. He was leaving for Chicago, or so he said. He looked sharp, the way a CEO of a venture capital firm like Nexus Capital should, but his energy was off. He was tense, his jaw tight. "Harper, listen," he said, straightening his tie without meeting my gaze. "This merger is everything. The final negotiations, it's completely confidential. So I'm going to be in lockdown. No calls. Okay, I can't have any distractions. I'll check in when it's done." I nodded, the familiar, accommodating smile locking into place. He leaned in for a kiss, a quick, dry press of lips against my cheek. That's when I smelled it. It wasn't his usual complex sandalwood. This was something else. A heavy, sweet, floral scent, cloying and unfamiliar. I mentally cataloged it, the way I would a forgery, but pushed the thought aside. He was meeting with people, shaking hands. Perhaps a colleague's perfume had transferred. "Be safe," I murmured. He left. I watched the black sedan disappear down the long, wooded drive, then turned back to the house. The silence of the massive home settled around me. This house, the one I'd poured my inheritance and my soul into renovating, had become my entire world after I'd given up my gallery connections and auction schedules to support his rise. For 3 days, the silence was absolute. I followed his instructions. I didn't call. I didn't text. I told myself the knot in my stomach was just anxiety for his high-stakes deal. I spent the time in the library, organizing my research, trying to feel like the woman I used to be. On the 3rd afternoon, my phone buzzed on the polished mahogany desk. It was a notification from our family's high-limit credit management app, the one I oversee. My heart didn't just sink, it stopped. A charge $15,000, the vendor Blue Horizon Yacht Charters, the location Miami, Florida. I stared at the screen, the words blurring and sharpening. $15,000. A yacht. In Miami. Julian was supposed to be in Chicago. My fingers, cold and steady, moved to the laptop. First, I checked the weather. Chicago was in the grip of a record-breaking blizzard. Flights were grounded, the city was paralyzed. Next, Miami. 82 degrees and cloudless. I pulled up Julian's shared calendar. It was a wall of blocked-out time labeled Nexus Summit. I checked his corporate travel itineraries. His flight had been booked to O'Hare, but I saw a subsequent, hidden booking on a different card, a one-way to Miami. The lie was so blatant, so lazy. It was an insult. The sweet perfume, the tension, the do not call order. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. My professional instincts kicked in. When you suspect a painting is fake, you don't slash the canvas. You gather your proof, meticulously and quietly. I found the number for Blue Horizon Yacht Charters. I took a deep breath, pitched my voice to the perfect blend of efficiency and authority, and dialed. "Good morning," I said, my tone crisp. "I'm calling from Mr. Julian Vance's office. I'm just finalizing his schedule and need to confirm the arrangements for his charter today. He's very particular." The receptionist on the other end was bright and accommodating. "Oh, absolutely. We're so excited to have them. Everything is all set. Mr. Vance and Miss Bella are actually just boarding now. The crew is pouring the chilled champagne as we speak, just as he requested." Bella. The name hit me like a physical blow, sucking the air from my lungs. Bella. The new intern. The 24-year-old with the long legs and the vacant smile who had started at Nexus Capital just 2 months ago. The girl I'd seen watching Julian with a predatory hunger at the last company fundraiser. He was in Miami, with her, on a $15,000 yacht. I ended the call politely. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't smash a single thing. The house was silent, but my mind was screaming. He hadn't just betrayed me. He thought I was stupid. I walked, my steps echoing on the marble floors, down the staircase to the temperature-controlled wine cellar. I ignored the expensive bottles Julian kept for show and selected a deep, complex Cabernet I'd been saving. I carried the bottle and a single glass back to the library, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed, illuminating my reflection. The accommodating wife was gone. Harper Vance, the appraiser, the woman who lived by facts and valued authenticity above all, was back, and she was ready to assess the damage. I sipped the Cabernet. It was a flawless vintage, complex and heavy, and it tasted like iron in my mouth. The shock that had frozen me was beginning to thaw, replaced by a cold, clarifying anger. Julian wasn't just a cheat, he was sloppy. He believed his own hype. He believed I was the ornamental wife he'd relegated to managing dinner parties. I picked up the household iPad from the library desk. Julian had been so proud of this integrated smart home system, boasting that he could control the lights, the temperature, and the security from anywhere in the world. But he had made a critical error, the kind of error an arrogant man makes. He had logged into the master administrative account on this device and never bothered to log out. My fingers bypassed the climate controls and the lighting grids, going straight to the security hub. I didn't care about the cameras watching the empty, manicured lawns. I went to the Vehicles tab, his favorite sports car. The dashcam was high-end, top of the line. It automatically uploaded audio and video footage to the cloud every time the ignition was cut. I scrolled back 3 days, to the morning he left. I pressed play on the audio file recorded during his drive to the airport. Her voice, high and reedy, filled the silent room. Bella. Oh my God, Jules, I cannot wait. Miami 10 whole days. Are you absolutely sure she won't find out Chicago in this blizzard? And then his voice, the deep, reassuring rumble that I'd trusted for a decade, now slick with a smug, patronizing amusement. Baby, Harper is completely wrapped up in her little domestic world. She won't call. I told her it was a confidential merger, and she bought it completely. She only sees what I want her to see. That yacht looks insane, Bella giggled. $15,000 just for the afternoon. It's nothing, he boasted. Only the best for you. Wait until you see the suite. I listened until I heard him mocking the perfume I wore, the one he'd bought me for our anniversary. I listened to them plan their shopping sprees. I listened to him promise her the world. My world. I didn't need to hear any more. I closed the app. My hands were perfectly steady. I didn't throw the iPad. I didn't scream. When I assessed a piece of art, I looked for the brushstrokes beneath the surface, the telltale signs of a fraud. I would now apply that same meticulous skill to dismantling my husband. I didn't call him to rage. I didn't text Bella. I called Mason. Mason and I had cut our teeth in the same auction houses years ago. While I'd specialized in valuations, he'd chased the darker side of art, the money laundering, the forgeries. He was now one of the most ruthless forensic accountants in New York. He answered on the second ring. Harper, it's late. This isn't about that Picasso sculpture again, is it? No, Mason, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. It's professional. I need a deep dive on my husband, Julian Vance, and his firm, Nexus Capital, and I need it tonight. There was a pause. Okay, Harper. I'm in. Give me your admin credentials to the joint accounts. I gave him everything. Then I waited. I sat in the dark library, the glass of red wine untouched. It took him 35 minutes. Well, he said, his voice grim. He's an idiot, but he's been a busy idiot. He's been bleeding your joint accounts for at least 6 months. Harper. He's been routing cash through a series of shell LLCs disguised as seed investments for Nexus. We're talking substantial sums. He's draining you dry. Where is the money now? Gone. Mostly. Spent. But his operating capital, his walking around money, it's all coming from one place. The Joint Centurion Black Card. It has an unlimited credit line, backed by your primary liquid assets. As far as I can see, it's his only lifeline right now. The card he's currently using in Miami, I stated. Miami, I thought he… Thank you. Mason, send me the full report. Bill my private inheritance account. I hung up and immediately dialed the private banking line for the credit card. Centurion Concierge, this is David. How may I assist you? Hello, David. This is Harper Vance. I am the primary account holder for card number. I recited the 16 digits from memory. I need to report a critical security breach. David's voice immediately became alert. Mrs. Vance, what seems to be the problem? My husband, Julian Vance, is in Chicago for secured business meetings. His wallet and card were meant to be locked in the hotel safe. However, a charge for $15,000 from Blue Horizon Yacht Charters in Miami, Florida, just posted. I believe the card has been physically stolen or skimmed, and our account is compromised. I am looking at the weather in Chicago. It's a blizzard. There is zero possibility this is a legitimate charge. I understand completely. Mrs. Vance, that is highly irregular. I am placing an immediate security hold on Mr. Vance's card. No, I said, my voice turning to ice. You will lock all cards associated with this account, mine included. And you will freeze every associated checking and credit line account pending a full fraud investigation. I want everything locked down, effective immediately. I do not feel secure. Yes, ma'am, of course. I am deactivating all cards now. The accounts are frozen. I disconnected the call. That was the first domino. Now, for the second. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint brokerage account, the one he managed for us, the one he used to fund his high-risk, high-reward image. I saw the volatile tech stocks and the leveraged crypto plays he was so proud of. He was gambling, using my inheritance as his backstop. My fingers were precise. I initiated a liquidate all order. I sold every single risky position he was holding, converting everything to cash. As the money settled, I initiated a wire transfer for the entire 6-figure sum, not to our joint account. I moved every cent into a firewalled trust in Switzerland, under my maiden name, the one my father set up for me. The one Julian didn't even know existed. His lifeline was cut. His safety net was gone. He just didn't know it yet. I let the confirmation of the freeze settle in the air. I didn't have to wait long. I imagined the scene playing out 500 miles away. Julian, magnanimous and expansive, trying to pay the extravagant bill for the yacht, the champagne, the private chef, the waiter's polite, humiliating return. I'm sorry, sir. The card has been declined. My phone, sitting on the cold granite countertop, began to buzz. The screen lit up. My husband. I watched it vibrate, the sound jarring in the cavernous silence of the house. I let it ring until it clicked to voicemail. It started ringing again, immediately, a frantic, desperate sound. After the third attempt, it stopped. A moment later, a text notification appeared. Baby, are you there? Card isn't working. Call me. I stared at the message. Another call. Voicemail. Another text. Harper, this is serious. The bank won't connect me. Did you change a password? I remained still. I could feel his panic rising, a tangible thing traveling across the fiber optic network. The calls became rapid, stacking up in my log. 10, 15, 20. Then, the final text, the mask slipping completely. What the hell did you do? Are you trying to embarrass me? Turn the card back on. Now. I picked up the phone. I didn't call him. I opened my weather app and took a screenshot of the current conditions in Miami, 82 degrees. Sunny skies, zero precipitation. I attached it to a new message and typed one sentence. Heard Chicago is beautiful this time of year. I hit send. The stream of incoming calls and texts stopped instantly. The silence that fell was absolute. He knew. He knew that I knew. The sudden cessation of his frantic attempts to reach me was more terrifying than any of his rage. He was trapped on a boat with his mistress and no way to pay for it. I left the phone on the counter and walked upstairs, past the master bedroom, to Julian's enormous custom-built walk-in closet. This was his inner sanctum, lined with dark wood and filled with suits he claimed were bespoke and shoes he claimed were handmade in Italy. My first instinct wasn't to destroy. It was to appraise. It's what I do. I didn't bother with the suits. I went straight to the glass-topped island where he kept his watch collection. His pride and joy. He'd often lecture me that these were real assets, unlike the dusty art I preferred. I picked up his favorite, a Patek Philippe he claimed was a $70,000 bonus. I retrieved my jeweler's loupe from the study. I examined the face, the weight, the movement. It was fake. A very good fake, the kind that would fool a civilian, but a fake nonetheless. The finishing on the movement was slightly coarse. The weight was off by 3 grams. I picked up the next one, a Rolex. Also fake, the Audemars Piguet. Fake. A cold sickness washed over me. He wasn't just lying about Bella. He was lying about everything. He wasn't the master of the universe I had propped up. He was a con artist, living a life funded by my inheritance and propped up by cheap replicas. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a complete financial fabrication. He wasn't just in trouble with me. He was in trouble. My phone rang again, buzzing on the glass display case. I startled. But it wasn't Julian. It was Mason. I answered, my voice steady. What did you find? Harper, he said. His tone was different. All business was gone, replaced by genuine alarm. You need to sit down. This is worse than some siphoned cash. Just tell me, Mason. I ran a title search on your address, on the villa. That's impossible, I said, my heart turning to ice. The house is mine. It was my parents'. It's held in my private trust. His name isn't on the deed. His name isn't, Mason said grimly. But a lien is. He took out a second mortgage. Harper, a hard money loan, from a predatory lender. I sank onto the leather ottoman. The smell of Julian's fake sandalwood cologne was suffocating. How I would have to sign. He forged your signature, flawlessly. It looks like he's been practicing. I couldn't breathe. He had used my home, my legacy. How much? Mason. There was a heavy pause. $800,000. He took the loan 6 weeks ago. The money is already gone. Before I could even process the full weight of his betrayal, the forgery, the theft of my parents' legacy, my phone rang again. It wasn't Julian. The screen displayed Eleanor Thorne. I let it ring twice, composing myself, then answered. Hello, Eleanor. Harper. What is the meaning of this? Her voice was a shrill blade, sharpened by years of entitlement. Julian just called me, completely humiliated. He is in Chicago, working himself to the bone for this family, and you have the audacity to lock him out of his own bank accounts. He had to borrow money from his intern. Do you have any idea how pathetic that makes him look? The mention of the intern, of Bella, sent a jolt of cold acid through my chest. He had called his mother, not to confess, but to complain. And she, in turn, was scolding me for my lack of wifely support. My voice, when I finally spoke, was unrecognizable to us both. It was low, flat, and lethal. Eleanor, stop talking. The screeching on the other end cut off abruptly. I had never used that tone with her in 10 years. You need to come to the house, I said. Right now. I will certainly not, she sputtered. I am not driving all the way to Connecticut at this hour just to listen to your hysterics. You will call the bank, you will reinstate your husband's card, and you will apologize to him. If you have any interest in your son's future, or your own, you will be here in 45 minutes. I have something to show you." I hung up the phone. I didn't wait in the foyer. I went to the large, opulent living room, the one Eleanor had insisted we decorate with heavy damask and gold leaf. I powered on the 80-inch television screen built into the wall. I pulled the dashcam audio files from the cloud. I opened the folder containing the Miami flight itineraries and the $15,000 yacht charge. I set them all to cast to the main screen. When the doorbell rang, I let her in. She stormed past me, her fur coat clutched around her. "This is absolutely unacceptable. Harper, you are behaving like a child. Julian told me this Chicago deal was sensitive, and here you are, sabotaging him." "Sit down, Eleanor." I gestured to the brocade sofa. She looked at me, taken aback by the command, but she sat. I stood, the remote in my hand. "You're right," I said. "You deserve to know what's going on." I hit play on the dashcam audio. The room, once filled with her indignation, was now filled with her son's voice. Bella's high-pitched giggle. Julian boasting. Harper is completely wrapped up in her little domestic world. She only sees what I want her to see. I watched Eleanor's face. The blood drained from it. Her perfectly lipsticked mouth fell open. She was white as marble. When the audio clip of them mocking my perfume faded, she was silent. She stared at the blank screen, shaking her head, trying to reorder the world. "Well," she finally whispered, grasping for the old, familiar script. "Men, they are weak. Harper, he's a high-powered man. These things, these unfortunate distractions, they happen. It's our job as wives to maintain the dignity of the family. You cannot destroy his reputation over a meaningless girl." "A meaningless girl," I repeated, the words tasting like ash. Dignity. I clicked the remote. The screen changed. It now showed the yacht charter invoice. "Miami." "This," I said, pointing to the screen, "is not Chicago." I clicked again. A high-resolution scan of a legal document appeared. A loan agreement. "And this," I said, "is where our conversation about dignity ends." She squinted at the screen. "What is that, some business document?" "This is a second mortgage, Eleanor, taken out against this house. My house. The one my father left me. The one your son lives in." I zoomed in on the signature line at the bottom. "This is a loan for $800,000, taken out 6 weeks ago. And that is my forged signature." She stared. She didn't understand finance, but she understood crime. "Your son," I said, my voice cutting through her daze, "didn't just cheat on me. He is a criminal. He committed felony fraud. Eleanor. He stole $800,000 against an asset that was never his. The money is gone, spent on God knows what, likely on her." I clicked the remote, and the screen went black. "So, no, I am not concerned with maintaining the family's dignity. I'm selling this house. I'm selling everything in it, including that sofa you're sitting on, to pay back the loan sharks he borrowed from before they seized the property. He didn't just have an affair. Eleanor, he drove this family into a financial abyss." She made a small, choking sound. The realization hit her. This wasn't a marital spat. This was ruin. Her son wasn't just a cheater. He was a failure. "No," she whispered, her eyes wide with a new, raw terror. "No, you can't. The reputation, the club." "The reputation is gone," I said. I walked to the foyer and opened the front door. The cold November air felt good. "You should leave. I have calls to make, my lawyers, an auction house. Our time as family is over." She stood, her legs visibly shaking, and for the first time, I saw her as she truly was, a weak woman who had built her life on the reputation of a fraudulent man. She walked out of my house without another word. I locked the deadbolt behind her. As soon as Eleanor's car disappeared down the driveway, the cold reality of my situation cemented itself. The $800,000 loan wasn't a bank error I could fix with a phone call. It was a ticking bomb, strapped to my parents' legacy by the man I married. Mason had been clear these predatory lenders didn't operate on polite timetables. Their interest rates were criminal, and their collection methods were worse. I didn't have months. I likely had days before they seized the property. I needed cash, a significant amount, and I needed it immediately. My gaze drifted from the gaudy, oversized sofa Julian insisted on to the walls, my art. The pieces I had bought over a decade ago, before Julian, back when I was just Harper Vance, the appraiser whose eye was legendary in the New York art scene. I had used my own money, my first big commissions, to acquire works from contemporary artists I believed in. Julian had always dismissed them as unsettling splatters. I walked over to a chaotic, beautiful, abstract canvas that hung in the dining room. I'd paid $50,000 for it 10 years ago. I knew, without even checking the latest auction results, that it was worth at least 5 times that now. The entire collection was my firewall. I didn't waste a second. I pulled out my personal phone and called David, the head of private sales at my old auction house. It was nearly 9 at night. But in that world, money never slept. He picked up on the second ring, his voice wary. "Harper, my God, I thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth. Retired to the country." "I'm back, David," I said, and I could hear the shift in my own voice. The hesitant, accommodating wife was gone, replaced by the professional he used to know. "I'm liquidating my entire private collection, all of it. I need a single buyer, a private sale, and I need it closed in 48 hours. There was a sharp intake of breath. "Harper, that's a career-defining collection. That's not a rush job. To get the best price." "I don't need the best price." I cut him off. "I need a price. You know the provenance of every piece. You know my reputation. This is a curated lot, not a fire sale. Find me one of your whales, someone who wants the prestige of acquiring the Vance collection in one go. You'll get a 12% commission, double your usual, if the wire transfer clears by Friday." He was silent for a moment, the gears turning. "Let me make some calls," he said. "All business now. You'll have an offer by morning." As I hung up, I allowed myself one brief, cold thought for Julian. I pictured him stranded in Miami, the black card deactivated, the joint accounts frozen. I pictured the humiliation. He was probably, at that very moment, having to sell one of his fake watches to a pawnbroker, or worse, begging his 24-year-old mistress to front him the money for a coach ticket back to New York. The image was pathetic. My next stop was his office, his shrine to himself. It was all dark mahogany, polished brass, and the smell of old leather and ego. I wasn't there to reminisce. I needed to see what he'd left behind. I began to empty his desk, tossing cheap deal toys and framed photos of himself into a cardboard box. It was behind a large, garish painting of a bull, a piece he'd bought at a charity auction, that I found it. A wall safe. Of course. How utterly cliché. I tried his birthday. Access denied. I tried our anniversary. Access denied. I tried his mother's birthday. Access denied. A sick, cold realization dawned on me. I thought of the dashcam audio, of her giggling voice. I pulled up my phone, navigated to Instagram, and found her profile. Bella. Her birthday was listed right in her bio, complete with balloon emojis. I typed in the 6 digits. The safe clicked open. The air left my lungs. It was an intimacy so profound, so insulting. It was worse than the sex. He had entrusted his secrets to her. I expected to find cash, maybe some of those fake watches. Instead, I found binders, several hard drives, and 2 black leather-bound ledgers. I opened the first one. This wasn't Nexus Capital's accounting. These were numbers I didn't recognize. Columns of figures next to shell corporation names and offshore account numbers. It was a meticulous record of incoming and outgoing funds. It wasn't just investing. It was washing. My husband wasn't just a cheat and a fraud, he was a professional money launderer. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, electric rage. I took out my phone. I began photographing every single page, every transaction, every name. I uploaded the encrypted files and sent them immediately to Mason. My message was simple. Add this to his file. He's running a much larger con than we thought. I closed the safe, leaving it empty. I left the painting askew. Then, I began to pack. Not his things. My things. I called an art handling crew for a dawn pickup. I called a moving company for an emergency vacancy. I walked through the rooms of my beautiful prison and began to strip it bare. This house was no longer a home. It was a stage, a cold, empty stage, and I was setting it perfectly for his return. The art handlers had just crated the last of my collection. The house echoed, stripped of its soul. My soul. David had called an hour ago with an offer from a tech billionaire that covered the $800,000 predatory loan and left me with a substantial seven-figure sum. The wire was in progress. As I was directing the movers to take the last of my personal trunks, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't recognize. A message request on Instagram. The profile picture was a heavily filtered selfie, all pouty lips and vacant eyes. Bella. I opened it. The message was accompanied by a photo of her hand, nails painted a garish neon pink, flashing a diamond ring on her left finger. It was large, gaudy, and, to my expert eye, a very cheap cubic zirconia. The setting was all wrong. The message read, "You're old, you know. You should just let him go. He doesn't love you anymore. He told me you two haven't been happy for years. We have true love. He's going to leave you for me as soon as he gets back." I read the words. 10 years ago, this would have shattered me. Even 6 days ago, it would have stung. Now I felt nothing but a cold, clinical pity. She was a child, blinded by fake diamonds and a fantasy woven by a con man. She thought this was a game about love. It was about survival. She saw Julian as a prize. I saw him as a liability I was about to write off. I didn't block her. I didn't engage in a catfight. I replied as I would to a junior appraiser who had made a catastrophic error in judgment. I opened my email, where Mason had sent me the full summary of Julian's financial ruin. I downloaded the two most relevant files. The first was his current credit report. His FICO score was in the low 500s, absolute trash. It was a sea of red defaulted payments, maxed out credit lines, and delinquent accounts. The second was a clean scan of the $800,000 loan agreement, the one with my forged signature. I attached both PDFs to my reply on Instagram. Then I wrote my message, every word chosen for maximum impact. Good luck with your true love. He is currently in the air. Flying coach, likely on money he borrowed from you. The man you're pinning your future on has a credit score of 520. He is also being hunted by loan sharks for the attached $800,000 loan he secured by forging my signature. He has no job, no credit, and no assets. He is a criminal. I paused, then added one final, professional assessment. By the way, that ring is costume jewelry. The cut is clumsy and it's set in plated white gold. My professional valuation would be around $200. You've been had. I hit send. I saw the scene notification almost immediately. I imagined her, probably at the Miami airport, her smug confidence dissolving. I could picture her frantic, manicured fingers trying to call Julian, only to get his voicemail, his phone useless at 30,000 feet. She wasn't just his mistress, she was his last known creditor, and he had just fled the scene. With that fire started, I moved to the main event. My lawyer had filed the emergency restraining order and the divorce papers, citing financial fraud. Now, it was time to detonate his professional life. I logged into my LinkedIn profile, a platform I'd kept polished but dormant. My network wasn't just art collectors, it was old money families, wealth managers, and the very venture capitalists Julian preyed upon. I posted the official for sale listing of the Connecticut villa. The pictures showed the grand empty rooms. My caption was polite, professional, and utterly devastating. After 10 wonderful years, my chapter in this stunning Connecticut estate is closing. I am moving on to new, independent ventures. I am so grateful for the memories this home has given me, including hosting so many partners and friends from Annexus Capital. On to the next adventure. I tagged his company. I tagged 2 of his primary investors by name. The effect was instantaneous. Nexus Capital was a fund built entirely on Julian's image of stability. Old money connections, my connections, and success my money. A founder's wife suddenly and publicly selling the family estate, citing independent ventures, is a 5-alarm fire in the investment world. It screams divorce, financial distress, and instability. My phone, which had been silent from Julian, lit up. It was Arthur Davies, Julian's senior partner. I ignored the call. Then came a text from another investor, Harper. "What is this? Is everything all right? Call me." They weren't calling Julian. He was unreachable. They were calling me, the supposed source of the problem, desperate for information. The rats were smelling the smoke. They were about to turn on each other to get to the lifeboats, and Julian was still in the air, blissfully unaware that his entire world was on fire. He had no money. He had no reputation. And I was quite certain, after my last message, he no longer had a mistress. He was just a man in a cheap suit, flying home to an apocalypse of his own making. He arrived just after midnight. I heard the crunch of the taxi on the gravel, a car door slamming with unnecessary force. The new, high-security deadbolt I'd had installed clicked as he fumbled with his old key. I heard a grunt of frustration, then a violent rattling of the doorknob. "Harper, open this damn door! What did you do to the lock?" I didn't move from the single, modern sofa I'd had delivered just that afternoon. It sat alone in the cavernous, echoing expanse of the living room. Everything else was gone. The rugs, the tables, the curtains, and most importantly, his gaudy, oversized furniture. I heard a crash of glass from the kitchen. He must have broken the pantry window to get in. Footsteps, heavy and frantic, stormed across the marble foyer. And then he was standing in the archway, backlit by the hall light. He was a wreck. His expensive suit was wrinkled from a day of travel. His hair was greasy, and he smelled of stale airplane air, sweat, and a cheap vodka I could identify from 10 feet away. His eyes were bloodshot and wild with a rage that bordered on panic. He stared at the empty room, his gaze sweeping over the blank walls where my paintings used to hang, the bare floors, the absolute emptiness. His head snapped toward me, the only object left. "Where is everything?" he roared, his voice cracking. "Where is my art? Where is the furniture?" He took a step toward me, his hands clenching. "What did you do with my money? Turn my cards back on, you bitch!" He lunged. I didn't flinch. I simply raised my right hand. In it, I held a can of pepper spray, the safety tab already off. My left hand held a folded piece of paper. He skidded to a stop, his eyes wide, confused by my calm. "Take one more step, Julian," I said, my voice cutting through his hysteria. It sounded amplified in the empty room. "One more step, and I will use this, after which I will call 911. This paper in my other hand is a temporary restraining order, signed by a judge this afternoon. You are legally barred from coming within 500 feet of me." I placed the paper on the floor between us. "You are no longer a resident of this house. By breaking that window, you have just committed criminal trespass. The locks are changed. You are not welcome here." He stared at the pepper spray, then at the paper, then back at me. The rage in his eyes flickered, the calculations happening behind them. He was cornered. The bravado, the anger. It was all a front. He deflated, the puppet with his strings cut. And then the performance began. His shoulders slumped, his face crumpled. Tears, real or manufactured I couldn't tell, welled in his eyes. He sank to his knees on the bare hardwood floor. "Harper, please," he whimpered. The roar was gone, replaced by the pathetic whine of a cornered child. "Baby, I know what this looks like. I messed up. I messed up so badly, but I was under so much pressure. This deal, everything. I was trying to build a better life for us. I wanted to give you everything. Gaslighting, the classic desperate pivot of a narcissist who has lost control. He was trying to make this my fault, my failure to understand his grand vision." I laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was sharp and brittle and full of contempt. "A better life for us." I stood up, walking not toward him, but toward the empty fireplace, where a stack of documents sat. I picked them up. "You mean this better life?" I threw the sheaf of papers at him. They scattered across the floor at his knees. He looked down and saw the loan agreement. He saw the highlighted line. He saw his own forgery of my name. "Is this part of the better life? Julian forging my signature, taking out an $800,000 loan from loan sharks against my parents' house. Was that for us, or was that for the $15,000 yacht you chartered for your intern in Miami?" His head snapped up. The blood drained from his face. He finally understood. This wasn't about the affair. This was about the con. "She told you," he whispered, horrified. "She didn't have to," I said. "You left a digital trail a blind man could follow. You're sloppy, Julian. You're a terrible criminal." He abandoned the gaslighting. He crawled forward, grabbing at the hem of my pants, the tears now flowing freely. It was disgusting. "Harper, you don't understand," he cried, his voice thick with genuine terror. "They're going to kill me. Those men. The loan. It's due. They're not a bank. Harper, they're going to break my legs. They'll ruin me. They'll find me." He looked up, his eyes manic and searching. "The paintings, your art. I saw you. I know you sold them. David told me. You have the money. You have to help me. You're my wife. You have to pay them off. Harper, please, you have to save me." I looked down at the man clinging to me. The man who had stolen from me, lied to me, and built his entire life on my foundations. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking for a bailout. I pulled my leg free from his grasp. "Your wife," I said, "is gone." He was still on his knees, weeping about the loan sharks, when the electronic chime of the front gate intercom sliced through the empty room. Julian leaped to his feet, his eyes wild with pure animal terror. "They're here," he hissed, scrambling to hide behind the single sofa. "Oh God, Harper, they found me. Don't let them in. Tell them I'm not here." "Stop being pathetic," I said, my voice flat. "Predatory lenders don't ring the bell." "Julian." I walked to the wall-mounted video screen. On the grainy camera, a small, shivering figure stood just outside the gates. It was Bella. She looked nothing like the smug seductress from her Instagram photos. She was tear-streaked, her hair matted, and she was clutching a backpack to her chest as if it were a life raft. I pressed the intercom button. "What do you want?" Her voice came through the speaker, thin and reedy. "Mrs. Vance Harper, please, you have to help me. I have something for you. He left me, Mrs. Vance. He left me in Miami with no money. I had to sell my laptop to get a flight back." Julian heard her voice and his panic shifted back to rage. "That lying—" I silenced him with a single raised hand. I looked back at the screen. This wasn't a confrontation. This was a defection. "Stay at the gate," I said, and cut the feed. I grabbed my coat. "If you move from that spot," I said to Julian, "I will call the police and have you arrested for violating the restraining order." "Am I clear?" He nodded, pale and cowed. I walked the long, dark driveway, the gravel crunching under my boots. The cold air felt good. I stopped a foot from the iron bars. She flinched when she saw me. "You got my message," I stated. It wasn't a question. "He's insane," she whispered, her words tumbling out. He's not who he said he was. That credit report, that loan, it's all true, isn't it? He's broke. He's a liar. And you, I said, are a slow learner. Why are you here? When he was screaming at his mother on the phone in Miami, she said, her voice dropping. I took his laptop. I thought I needed insurance, in case he tried to blame me for something. She unzipped the backpack and pulled out a small, silver external hard drive. He kept everything on here, separate from the company servers. I'm a good secretary. I copied his private directories. She held the drive up to the bars. It's all here, Mrs. Vance, the real books for Nexus Capital. The offshore accounts. He's been skimming from his partners for years. There's 5 years of tax documents, 2 sets of them, one for the IRS, and one that's real. I stared at the drive. The $800,000 loan was a drop in the ocean. This was it. This was the key. This was the evidence of a systematic, multi-million-dollar fraud. I want $20,000, she said, her voice gaining a desperate edge. For this. So I can leave New York. So I can move somewhere he can't find me. Please. I'm scared. I just want out. $20,000 for the silver bullet. A small price to pay. But I looked at her. At the girl who had taunted me, who had gleefully participated in the destruction of my marriage for a fake diamond and a tropical vacation. She wasn't an innocent victim. She was a failed opportunist. I'm not giving you $20,000, I said, my voice cold. You were a willing participant. You're trying to sell evidence of a crime you were adjacent to. That makes you a witness, not a business partner. Her face crumpled. But I have nothing. I will give you $10,000. I cut her off. It is not a negotiation. It is a one-time offer for the data. It's enough for you to get on a bus and start over somewhere cheap. Or you can walk away with that hard drive and hope Julian's investors find me before they find you. Your choice. She looked at the small drive in her hand, then back at the dark, silent house. She knew I was right. She slid the hard drive through the bars. It was cold in my hand. Wire it to me by morning, she whispered, rattling off an account number. You'll have it by 9 a.m., I said. Now go, and delete my number. She didn't need to be told twice. She turned and sprinted down the dark road. I walked back into the house, the hard drive heavy in my pocket. Julian was still on the floor, looking up at me with a pathetic, desperate hope. Is she gone, Harper? Thank God. Listen, we can fix this. I know we can. The money from your art. I walked right past him, sat on the sofa, and plugged the hard drive into my laptop. I called Mason. You're not going to believe this, I said, as the file directories popped up on my screen. I have the real books. I have the tax evasion. I have all of Nexus Capital's skeletons. Mason was silent for a long moment. Harper. My God. This isn't a divorce case anymore. This is RICO. This is federal. With this, he's going to prison for a very, very long time. A long time. It sounded like justice. I closed the laptop and looked at Julian. He was still watching me, like a dog waiting for a command. Get up, Julian, I said. He scrambled to his feet, hope flooding his features. Yes, what are we going to do? We, I said, standing, are having a meeting tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. My lawyer's office. The relief that washed over his face was palpable. He actually smiled, the tears still wet on his cheeks. He thought I was going to save him. He thought this meeting was about liquidating my assets to pay off his debts. Thank you, Harper, he sobbed, rushing forward to hug me. I put a hand flat on his chest, stopping him. Don't touch me. I walked to the door. 10 a.m. Julian, don't be late, and find somewhere else to sleep tonight. The locks will be changed again in the morning. I left him there, a naive fool in the center of his own ruined stage, still believing the curtain hadn't fallen. Julian arrived at my lawyer's high-rise office at 10 a.m. on the dot. He had managed to find a dry cleaner. He wore a fresh suit. His hair was perfectly combed, and he'd even put on a pair of cufflinks. He looked like the man I'd married, confident, composed, and utterly in control. He was carrying a slim leather briefcase and gave me a strained, conciliatory smile as he entered the conference room, as if we were partners about to solve a difficult business problem. I was already seated at the head of the long, polished table. My lawyer, Mr. Harrison, sat to my right. To my left sat Mason, looking grim, his laptop open. "Harper, darling," Julian began, his voice smooth and practiced. "I'm so glad we're handling this maturely. I spent all night thinking, and I've come up with a solution that works for both of us." He clicked open his briefcase and slid a document across the table toward me. "This is just a simple post-nuptial agreement. It reallocates some assets. Essentially, it frees up the capital from your art sale to cover the loan, and gives me a controlling interest in the brokerage accounts. It's the fastest way to make this problem go away so we can start to rebuild. If you just sign—" I didn't even look at the paper. I looked past him, at the large monitor on the far wall. "Mason," I said. Julian frowned, confused. "Harper, did you hear me?" Mason hit a key, and the screen lit up. The first slide was a high-resolution screenshot. The bright blue logo of Blue Horizon Yacht Charters, the $15,000 charge, the Miami dateline. Julian's smile faltered. "Harper, this is hardly the time." Mason hit the key again. The next slide appeared. It was the $800,000 loan agreement. My forged signature was circled in red, blown up to fill half the screen. Julian's color began to fade. Now, that was a misunderstanding. I was going to tell you. "Slide 3, Mason," I said, my voice quiet. The screen changed again. This time, it wasn't a single document. It was a complex flowchart. It showed money moving from Nexus Capital's main fund, funneling through 3 offshore shell corporations, and landing in a private account in the Caymans. An account under the name J. Vance Holdings. It was a page from the ledger Bella had provided. Julian stared at the screen. He looked like he'd been shot. The blood drained from his face, leaving him a pasty, sickly gray. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the damning, undeniable proof. He whispered one word, a question filled with a pathetic, dawning horror. "Bella." He finally understood. She hadn't just left him. She had sold him. "Mr. Vance," my lawyer said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We have a few more guests." A door on the other side of the conference room opened. Julian, in his naive hope, probably expected a marriage counselor. Instead, 3 individuals in dark, severe suits walked in. I recognized the senior partner, Arthur Davies, and the lead counsel for Nexus Capital. "Arthur," Julian stammered, scrambling to his feet. What are you doing here?" The lawyer didn't waste time on pleasantries. He placed a single blue-backed folder on the table. "Julian Vance, this is your formal and immediate notice of termination from Nexus Capital. For cause, we were made aware of significant financial improprieties, namely embezzlement and fraud." He gestured to the screen, which still showed the incriminating flowchart. "Based on the evidence provided by Mrs. Vance, we have initiated a full forensic audit. We will be suing you to claw back every dollar you have stolen from this firm and its investors." It was too much. The entire carefully constructed world he'd built his career, his reputation, his escape plan with his mistress, his backup plan of using my money, it all evaporated in one single, catastrophic moment. He didn't speak. He roared. It was an animal sound, a scream of pure, cornered rat fury. His eyes, which had been calculating and hopeful, turned black. "You," he screamed, his face contorting. He lunged across the table, not at the lawyers, but at me. "You did this. You ruined me." He never made it. Before he could even get one hand on me, two uniformed security guards, whom Mr. Harrison had stationed outside the door, burst in. They had him by the arms in a second, pinning him against the wall with a sickening thud. He struggled, thrashing and spitting, a complete animal. "I'll kill you, Harper! You bitch, you'll never get away with this! That money is mine!" He was still screaming as they dragged him, fighting and kicking, out of the conference room and toward the elevators. I stood up slowly, my hands perfectly steady. I adjusted the sleeve of my blazer. I looked at the Nexus lawyers, who were staring, shaken, at the door. Then I looked at my own lawyer, who nodded at me. I walked to the head of the table, gathered my purse, and looked at the chaos Julian had left behind the overturned chair, the useless, predatory contract he'd wanted me to sign. I thought of the last 10 years, the dinners I'd hosted, the career I'd shelved, the lies I'd absorbed. "You took 10 years of my youth, Julian," I said, though he was long gone. "But you will not get one more cent." The conference room door burst open again. It wasn't the building security returning. It was 2 men and 1 woman in dark suits, their badges clipped to their belts. They moved with a federal efficiency that made the corporate lawyers look like amateurs. "Julian Vance," the woman in charge asked, her voice calm and authoritative. Julian, still pinned against the wall by the security guards, froze. The woman held up the warrant. "You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, bank fraud, and tax evasion." This was my final move. After Mason and I had reviewed the contents of Bella's hard drive, the 2 sets of books, the 5 years of meticulously documented theft, I knew a divorce wasn't enough. Suing him in civil court wasn't enough. He wouldn't just lose his money. He would have to pay with his time. I hadn't just called my lawyer. I had called the FBI. I spent 4 hours with them the night before, handing over every piece of evidence: the forged loan, the dashcam audio, the ledgers from the safe, and the entire damning contents of the hard drive. I didn't just want him out of my house. I wanted him out of society. As they pulled his arms behind his back, the click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The reality of his situation finally, truly, hit him. This wasn't a business deal gone wrong. This wasn't a marital spat he could talk his way out of. This was the end. His head swiveled toward me, his eyes rolling with a hatred so pure it was almost primal. "You," he shrieked, his voice raw. "You did this. You cruel, evil woman. You'd rather see me in jail than let me be happy. I hope you rot." He was still screaming my name, still spitting curses, as they led him out of the room, past the stunned Nexus lawyers, and into the elevator. I just stood there. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I reached up and straightened my blazer, smoothing a lapel he had wrinkled in his lunge. Then I picked up my purse and walked out, leaving the corporate lawyers to figure out how to salvage the scraps of their burning company. The legal fallout was swift. With the evidence from the hard drive, the federal case was open and shut. Julian, facing a mountain of undeniable proof, took a plea deal. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for wire fraud, forgery, and tax evasion. Nexus Capital collapsed, and the investors sued to recover their losses. The predatory lenders seized the Connecticut villa, which was fine by me. I had already taken everything I owned from it. The house, like my marriage, was just a beautiful, hollow shell. I had already moved on. The money from my art collection, my money from my old life was more than enough. I didn't need that sprawling cold monument to a lie. I bought a small, sun-drenched penthouse in the city center, a place with walls of glass and a view of the skyline. I used the remaining capital to do the one thing I should have never stopped doing. I reopened my art appraisal firm. I put my maiden name on the door, Vance & Associates. I'm sitting in that new office right now, the morning light streaming in. My desk is a clean, white slab of marble, not dark, heavy mahogany. I was just finalizing a valuation for a new client when my phone chimed. It wasn't a text from a furious ex-partner of Julian's. It wasn't a call from an irate mother-in-law. It was a simple notification from my bank. A wire transfer had just cleared. It was the first of several payments. My court-ordered share from the liquidation of Julian's few remaining legitimate assets. It wasn't a life-changing sum, but it was a satisfying one. It was the final period at the end of a very long, very ugly sentence. I picked up my coffee, the real, strong kind I love, not the tepid brew Julian preferred. I looked down at the streets of New York, at the thousands of people bustling, living their own real, complicated lives. There was no more cloying, sweet perfume. There were no more whispers, no more lies. I smiled. I had lost a husband who was nothing but a forgery, a cheap replica of a successful man. But in the process, I had found the original. I had found Harper Vance, and she was stronger and wealthier than she had ever been before. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to connect with all of you, so please comment below and let me know where you're listening from and share your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories and like this video, and please, give that hype button a press so more people can hear this story.